Hello, everybody. My name is Bonnie, and I'm an environmentalist. And today with us on the DogSpot channel, we have Neha, who is who is into the world of rescuing all sorts of animals, wild and domestic ones. And she's based out of. But before I introduce Neha, I'll leave Neha to introduce herself.
Hi everyone. I'm Neha. I founded an organization called RESQ more than 13 years ago now. And basically, what we do is rescue animals. That is the core of what we do. And we have a rescue center in Pune. We rescue all kinds of animals. We have 3 different units. We have a small domestic unit, a large domestic unit, and a separate wildlife unit. So when we say we rescue animals, we pretty much rescue all kinds of animals. So yeah, well, that's what we do.
So Neha, I think y'all just have missed the eye of the storm in the last 2-3 days. How was your situation in your area? I mean, how overwhelmed or not so overwhelmed have you been?
So actually, we were not the eye of the cyclone. The cyclone actually mainly hit, went like when it made landfall, it went to Mumbai and Alibag. And at around 4:30 p.m. that day, we had like crazy winds here in Pune. And honestly, we were not anticipating too much damage here. In fact, we had already reached out to people in Alibag and those areas where we were on standby to go for rescue work there. But in fact, we have in the last 2 to 3 days, especially the same day, the day after that, we have had a crazy amount of birds coming in. I think birds have been badly affected, even in Pune. I mean, like I think on the first day we had almost some 20 or 30 birds that came in, and of all kinds. There were like nestlings that had fallen down. There were birds that were electrocuted. There were, there was all. I mean, there were birds that came in with injuries. So yeah, and I mean, it was an unusually large amount as compared to a normal day. The kind of calls we get. So yes, it was quite a lot. And the center is full right now. We've been like putting. Normally we have a bit of excess transport crates. That day we were just sitting and bringing the crates, and they were being washed and just being sent out again and again and again. So yeah, it was quite crazy for 2 days after the cyclone hit, even though we were not really we were not in its direct path.
Right. So you mean to say that when you have birds, would you then say that when you do your rescues, you would also have birds that can be rehabbed, or some of them stay with you forever, or do you have birds that
So no animal, no wildlife, no animal stays with us forever. We are not a zoo. We are literally more like a transit unit, a rehabilitation hospital. That's more like it. So we have a team that does the rescue, and then it comes to us. It undergoes rehabilitation, and then once it's fit for release, it will be released back. And depending on the kind of bird it is and what stage it has come at, release plans differ based on those kind of things.
Right, that's where I wanted to just touch upon. Yes, it's rescue, rehab, release, but more that y'all do ensure that as many as possible birds do get released back and forth.
Yes, the idea is to send them back out. We're not hanging on to anything.
Right, perfect. Tell us the technical difference between a domestic animal and a wild animal for people to understand what do you really bucketize under domestic and what do you bucketize under wild when you'll do your rescues?
Well, to bucket it, I mean, it's a simple legal explanation because domestic animals are, have been allowed to be domesticated. Anyone can have them, anyone can rear them, anyone can keep them at home. You can keep dogs, cats, cows, horses if you want at home. Whereas wildlife species are concerned, even like we're not allowed to take them home. I mean, I'm not allowed to take them home technically. So the thing is, there is no.
Touched upon is a lot of people in the country overall in India consider monkeys to be partially domestic, partially wild, because you would have people having the langurs and the monkeys. So, from somebody who is really into the rescue, rehab, release, if you could just enlighten the audience between the differences, that might just help.
Okay, so when it comes to the rescue process that involves wildlife species, first and foremost, you have to have the permission to do it.
Mm.
Okay, so we have official, we have an agreement with the forest department. So we are an official organization that works, with the forest's permission. So we have the permission to keep wildlife. So it's actually incorrect, when people go and pick up wildlife species and take them home,
Mm. Yeah.
because it's not the right thing to do. It has to be handed over to the forest or to an organization that is authorized to, keep them, treat them, those kind of things. Secondly, the monkeys that you were talking about, I mean, people consider, like, I mean, you said that people consider them to be domesticated. I mean, well, they are wildlife species at the end of the day. So no, they were never meant to be domesticated. Unfortunately, it's not just the monkey. We had it previously with the bears. We still have it today with the elephants. I
Mm.
mean, animals in captivity, that's another, issue in itself. I mean, that is something that is a whole different topic to talk about entirely. But when it comes to rescue, our team is trained, to understand how wildlife species, different wildlife reacts. So it's not, we are people, most people are comfortable with dogs, cats, even birds to a great extent. Some
Mhm.
people are even okay with snakes, in that sense. But when it comes to rescuing a hyena or a leopard, or we've had elephants at rescue, it's a very different skill set. It's different equipment, different safety, different understanding of the animal.
Mm.
So there's having a good, calm, composed, experienced team who's skilled. It just requires a completely different. Finding people to work in wildlife rescue is also a challenge, in that sense. So I mean, it's easier to find people who worked with domestic animals before. So I mean, they're just different challenges altogether in
How did
wildlife
you
and.
start with your rescue? What was the inception? What was that point of inspiration where you said, I want to create an ark for my animals around me who I can rescue, rehab, and release? What was the trigger?
So actually, it was. I mean, I've loved animals since I was really little. But when I came to Pune, I'm originally born and brought up in Mumbai.
Mm-hmm.
But when I moved to Pune, there was nobody doing animal rescue on the streets. I could keep finding animals hurt and injured, and there was not a single ambulance on the streets. There was nobody coming out there on the street to pick up an animal.
Wow.
So, a lot of us face this issue in different parts of the country. I mean, I'm sure each one of us have gone through that frustration. Anyone who cares about animals, and if there's nothing in your city, it's a very common thing to feel. I guess I was just one of those people who, like, turned around and said, okay, I want to do something about it. I don't want to complain. But if you ask me about the trigger, there was this one dog, one of the co-founders of Rescue, Tanya. Tanya found a dog which had distemper, and I didn't even know her back then. She just messaged, we were just acquaintances, and she messaged on the phone, does anyone have a place to keep a dog overnight? It was a distemper dog. I had no experience with the dog with distemper before, but I still agreed, that, I have a place to keep it, we'll keep it. It was the most frustrating night of our lives because the dog was mutilating itself to death. And it was very, very agonizing to watch. He passed away the next morning. We could not get a vet in time. We could not get an ambulance. We could not get any help for him that night. And I think that was the trigger. That one death was frustrating enough for us to say, you know what, let's stop pointing fingers at others. There are some other organizations, but they're involved in different activities. Some are shelters, some are ABC organizations. So let's start an organization that does animal rescue. And that's why it's rescue. It's just our rescue because we want to rescue animals.
And how many people do you have in your rescue center at this point in time?
Right now, in the organization today, there's about 45 people who work full time.
Mm-hmm.
But it did not start with 45 people. It started with only two people. It started only with Tanya and me and our car. Now we have 45 people and we have ambulances and we have a rescue center, but all of that didn't happen overnight.
Yeah, of course, nothing happens overnight and it grows incrementally. And one
Yeah,
thing,
it grew very, very slowly over the years. We took baby steps, and I'm very glad we did because sometimes too much too quickly is problematic. Yeah.
yes. And so I guess the starting point was an inspiration from a dog who would have martyred himself to just eventually ignite the fire and say, okay, we started it.
Well,
Next step that you would say, how did you all move from, let's say, or rather, what is your first large animals, since you all are talking about domestic, and domestic is cats and dogs, it starts usually with dogs or it starts with cats at some point. When did you all transition? Okay, you know what? I'm not going to distinguish between a cat and a dog and probably a monkey or a donkey. Where did that? When did
So I'll tell you that's an interesting thing. Rescue as an organization has always evolved based on the need of the hour. So I
okay.
will tell you, I mean, as a person who grew up only around dogs and cats, it's pretty much first thing that I was comfortable with, right?
Hmm.
And interestingly enough, we did not even move on to large domestic. It went from dog cat straight to elephant. So the first
Oh,
large thing we had was an elephant. So actually, what had happened is there was another there was this animal activist who had, suddenly landed up in an elephant because they had seized it in a legal case and they didn't know where to keep it. And they were like, "Hey, you guys have a place, will you keep an elephant?" And I was like, "What?" So I mean, but there was nobody else ready to keep it at that time. It was one of those things. She was a blind elephant, and thank God, she was. For us, I mean, when I say thank God, God was kind to us that He gave us a very manageable elephant for the first one. She was an old female, she was blind, and but the thing is that so she came to us first, and I mean, I remember scrambling, making calls to organizations, in other parts of the country who had experience with elephants, asking them to send in staff. So many people helped out. That's how we learned. So the elephant came first. I mean, see, that was what was needed then. And then, of
yeah.
course, she stayed with us for a few months, and then she went to sanctuary. And then after that, actually, what happened is Maharashtra had the beef ban came about, was enforced in the state. And after that, a lot of large animals started getting dumped on the streets. So, and found their way to the streets. So we always had a stray cattle issue. It is not that it was not there before, but it started happening in far larger numbers, and more road accidents, more FMD spreading, more animals with collapsing on the road because they've eaten so much plastic. So that's how the cows started coming in, and there was nobody else doing it, and it
Right.
was frustrating to watch because to me, life is a life. It doesn't matter if it's a cow or a bird or a cat, in that sense. So we took them in, we started taking them in, and that's how it happened. And, different problems at different times. So, I mean, that's how large animals started coming in. That was the need of the hour because slaughter stopped, and people would just, once they were done with the dairy industry, they would just get dumped on the road. And yeah, it was just that, or yeah, it was just one of those things. That's how it happened.
When you all started, I mean, did you all find enough and more collaboration, or do you still find enough and more collaboration with other rescue groups or animal groups who are in your
Um,
reach? I mean, how spread are you, rather? Along with collaboration, sometimes it can be just that you are 100 kilometers away from from where an animal is. That's where I'm getting at. If that's
Okay. So, if you talk about where all we get to, and about general collaborations,
yeah.
um, Rescue is based out of Pune mainly. So we try to stick to Pune. Uh, but when it comes to so that's especially with the domestic work. 2.5 years back, we also started a team in Lonavala because there was an amazing group over there. So that is an official collaboration between Rescue and another local group there called Shiv Durga Mitra.
Okay.
So people came here, trained with us, and now we support that organization, which is now also Rescue. I mean, it's Rescue Lonavala. So that's the only one we've sort of expanded out to. So otherwise, we are based only in Pune. But when it comes to wildlife work, it's the entire Pune division. So wherever the cases come from, the Pune Forest Division. So if it comes from anywhere, we take it in. I mean, sometimes it even comes from other districts.
Mm-hmm.
Also, during disaster relief work, we go wherever it's required. We went to Kerala in 2018. We went to Sangli. I mean, we had floods in Pune as well last year. Even like a couple of months back, just before the lockdown, we got animals from Solapur because there was certain wildlife that needed surgery help. Also, if it's us not going there, we do have connects not, I mean, they're very mutual understanding kind of connects. If we
Right.
know something has happened, like for example, a peacock came from Manchar yesterday. We are not based over there, but they reached out because they were following our work. So we talk to local groups in different places, and whenever we can help, we will take an animal in, or if we can't go there, we will reach out to them. So there are some people in Down, some really lovely local groups over there. So if there's something that happens over there, we reach out to them and say, hey, this has happened there, can you do something? It works pretty well. I think when you're open to share and do those kind of things, it does. We do have those kind of connects, but officially our organization, we are based in Pune, Lonavala, and if we have the resources and means, we will go wherever it takes, but mainly we are here.
All right. What you know, when you have a large rescue group and when you have people across, there are some people who you really depend on in your I would say organization because I can't find another word for it.
No, that's the right word.
I struggled for a second and then I thought, you know what? It's an organization. Even though it's a rescue group, it's still an organization. Would you touch upon the key people who are really the backbone of your place? It is not Atanya and Neha, but it is them
Yes.
at large. I would like you to just address them and, the work that they do and their contribution in making this whole place really
Yeah,
flourish.
I mean, constantly, most people associate rescue with me or with Tuhin, who is, one of the main rescuers in the organization.
Mm-hmm.
But we have, I mean, every single person at rescue, and, people tell me, oh, yeah, you're doing such a great job. But the truth is, there is no way one single person can be
Yeah.
rescuing so many animals. It is not possible. That is why it's an organization. That is why I chose to start an organization, because there's only so much you can do alone.
Mm.
So the core people, I mean, the backbones, truly, I always call them my right and my left brain, are Tuhin Satarkar and Fiana Ilavia. So Fiana and Tuhin basically, have been around for very many years. Besides them, the amazing doctors that we have, and not just the doctors, but even the people who are into looking after the rehoming center, looking after the rehabilitation work. Everyone comes from such different backgrounds, different experiences from before. But yes, I mean, they are pretty much, I mean, all our vets, I'm so proud to say that I can say that each and every one of our vets is so compassionate about animals, and which is why they're still there. Because if they weren't, they would not even survive rescue.
Right. I mean, I think it's critical to have vets who are really able to understand the animals because unlike human animals can't speak, but yet they need special attention. So touch upon how do you sort of manage to find vets who are competent with domestic, large, wild. You have array of animals, birds, and most of the time you require it's like horses for courses, as I usually say as far as vets are concerned. You cannot say a vet who is superb with a dog will be superb with a camel.
So here's how it goes. Basically, about I think 5 years back, not even five, 4 or 5 years back, we only had one or two vets. We have an amazing bunch of young vets who are willing to learn, who are willing to update themselves. So the
Right.
first most important thing, even when a vet wants to join us, I mean, I almost don't even worry about what bookish knowledge they have. It is not even the experience they come with. For me, it's about and it's not even a gender, like most of them of course will want to join an organization like rescue only for two purposes. Number one, they want experience because we have loads of animals. Number two is because they really like the work and they like animals. But otherwise, most vets also get, they're starting of their careers, so they want to do something commercial and those kind of things. So the fact that they've come to rescue to begin with, and are willing to rough it out, and it is not an easy job for a vet at a rescue center. It's very different from a private practice. There are no there are no fancy pets, and there's a lot of other stuff to deal with. When it comes to a rescue center, life and death is a daily part of their lives. I have over the years I've developed a set of trick questions to ask them to check where their ethics lie and what kind of morals run. So
Yeah.
yeah, I guess I've learned over time to recognize. Sometimes I think I've even hired a vet who may not have had very great skills, but I feel like they have the potential to, and I think I've been right about it. So far, so good. So I think it's just about experience, and most of the vets that have joined us have either been fresh off the boat or right after their PG, surgeons, things like that, and they seem to be pretty happy at rescue because also there are so many cases and they get to learn. Also
Right.
different when it comes to understanding different species of animals. We also know, the vets also know who's good at what, who's an expert at what, and also we have for example, there's a wonderful organization in Bangalore called ARRC, and the founder of that organization is always willing to share her information about animals. So whenever our vets need to, ask something or they're unsure about something, they will just reach out to her, even though Jayanti is not a vet. So I feel like our vets are also very humble people who
Mhm.
understand that others come with experience as well. They value experience. They also really reach out to other vets in other parts of the countries. I always encourage our vets to learn.
Acknowledging is so
Yes.
critical. So,
Yes, learning is so important because information is changing all the time. So I think being open to learning is a very key quality to have. If they are very, very stubborn about what they're doing, it doesn't make sense.
Neha, we have a few people questioning us on a few things. I'm just going to read out the question to you, and I'll be willing
Okay.
to read it just in case you miss out. Minas Khan is asking, do you think it's right to relocate or adopt a dog cat when they're happily living in their territory? I've seen lots of people, lots of posts where people pick up cats on the street and put them up for adoption.
Hi. So number one, it all depends. But picking them, is it right to relocate an animal? I don't think it's right to relocate a grown adult animal that is perfectly, it's even against the law to just pick up animals and relocate them in another place. I think it's great when people adopt animals off the street, but it depends. But I don't think it's right when people pick up animals, pups from the street, take them home, put them up for adoption, then they realize that they're not getting adopted and then put them back on the street. That's not okay. So when somebody picks up a bunch of puppies from the road, they need to know that when I'm picking it up, I need to see this through, or I'm going to have to keep them with me for the next 15 years. So I always tell people this: when you pick up a puppy, you make sure that if you can't find a home for it at that moment, you are ready to keep all of them for the next 15 years. So
Yeah.
while it comes from a very good place that people want to put them up for adoption and things like that, I think that these kind of things need to be thought through a lot. Otherwise, it becomes more misguided compassion.
Mm. There is another question from Sairam. With the sheer number of variety of rescue calls ranging from cat on the wall to rescued wildlife, as mentioned, how is the decision made with regards to which one is to be rescued first?
So, sometimes it's just by priority. So, it depends. If there's a poisoning case, they will probably run to that first. If it is a cat who's stuck on a ledge, we will check where the team is, the technical rescue team, which is headed by Tuhin. He will check where all the, where is everyone placed who is required for that kind of rescue. So when we get a low, and also it also depends on whether we have the capacity to do it. If our teams are already out, there are times we tell people, I'm sorry, we cannot come, please try to call another organization, because there are some other organizations. So there are some things that we do which we know only we do. So obviously if it's a large animal call, or if it's a technical animal rescue, I know we have a team that has all the gear to do it, so we will attend to those calls first. So it all depends. We prioritize on the basis of several factors, not just a single one.
Okay, so do you all also take support of, let's say, the fire department at times or the local people at times when you have rescues where you know that your resources are well deployed somewhere else, but the local people, if they are sort of guided, they will do the rescues for you? Have you all been able to build that?
Yeah. So the thing is, We, in fact, last year, in fact, had an entire training session with the fire department where we train them essentially
Right.
on how to basically rescue an animal. They have tall ladders and all those things, but they don't understand animal behavior.
Mm,
So, and what used to happen is the animal, it's not, I always say this to people, it's not just about bringing that animal down, bringing that animal down correctly and making sure that it is. So for example, it unfortunately happened just a few days back where the fire department went and pulled out a puppy from fallen in a tank, in a tank, and they did their job of picking it up and putting it out and leaving it there, but they just left it there. It had broken legs and it was just left there. In fact, we were not even planning to go there because we thought it's been rescued, but our team was close by, so we went and checked, and it was all the rescue was done and the puppy was still there. you
mm,
know I have reported this to them, but already. But things like this happen. So, and if you're talking about collaborations with local people, I mean, if there is somebody, what we do generally is, if the rescue has come from a far off area, we know some responsible people there. So we will call them and we will tell them, please go check on the situation, crowd control, make sure nobody's stressing the animal out. Because sometimes what happens, before we even come, people have tried all kinds of stunts and the animal is super stressed by the time we reach there. So in fact, we have almost like a first responder who goes there, who knows how our team works in such technical situations, and will
mm.
handle the situation there, make sure the animal is least stressed, is not harming itself more, those kind of things, till we reach there. I mean, so that's how it works. Yeah.
So Neha, what are some of the challenges that you face to get the right people who you'll be able to sustainably keep in your organization on long term basis? Because I've seen this firsthand in larger cities. People get trained by an organization, they put in, the organization invests, and you have people far and few who have the compassion to work with the animal, the right attitude, and then you develop the skill sets. And then, unfortunately, I use the word, they get poached. That's the right word by some other.
We've never faced the poaching part of it,
Yeah,
but people, like, initially, like, of course, there will always be a certain rate of attrition. It happens in every company organization.
right.
Also, I would like to say, whereas rescue is concerned, I treat this. So I always say this: we are a non-governmental organization. We're not a non-governmental disorganization. So
Mm,
the only difference between us and a corporate in that sense is that we are not for profit and they are for profit. So
mm,
number one, I also think that just because I being a founder, of course, I draw nothing, but everyone else who works at rescue is on a proper salary with
right.
whatever benefits that they would get otherwise.
Mm,
Also, in general, I mean, I love monkeys, but if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys, that kind of thing, if you've heard that. So the thing is, the people that matter, the people who've got good skill sets, to me, I look at them as a very long term, as and they don't work for me. They work with the organization. They work with me. So I think it's the attitude that works as well. And there are an X amount of people that I know are very valuable to the organization. So it's important to me that they are paid well, because at the end of the day, passion and charity can only take you that far. So while there is a great level of attrition in the lower ground staff, animal caretakers and those kind of things, which is okay, because you can keep training those kind of people, and we have like very set sort of patterns where of what a person has to go through for training when they come, when they join, when they join at whatever level. But I think that, I think it's a big misnomer that NGOs don't pay well. Good NGOs that run professionally pay decent, and I think that it is an excellent job career. So I don't think that's been such a problem in the last few years, especially because even our organization has changed. We also aspire to adopt the same standards that other organizations all across the world do. So a little bit of attrition, I mean, that's a part of any organization. It's not just animal organizations.
right. So Neha, tell us a little about human-animal dynamics that you sort of, you may be in at one particular area and you have people who are working with you, but they live somewhere in their own area. Do they take back the learnings from your rescue group to the areas where they live so that their conflicts in their regions will be lessened and their little locality will be lessened to an extent?
The people you're talking about, I'm sorry, are you talking about people in Pune or in and around or?
Let's say you have people who are working with you, they all go back home at some point in time or the other. And do they sort of also imbibe that culture of bringing onto the world in their environment to lessen the conflict of human beings and the animals, or do they just take their work with y'all as work and then finish it
I,
off?
I mean, this is something that I feel very strongly about. In
Yeah.
fact, that I feel like once rescue has touched a life, human or animal, I
Mm,
just feel like it just you are a different person because I do think it carries forward. I mean, I'll give you a small example. When we go to do an animal rescue, okay, I
mm,
always see this. We are not just rescuing that animal. Very often, till we reach there, there's probably nobody around that animal, just one person who may have called. But
mm,
when we reach there, when the others around look at the fact that an animal is being helped, then you'll suddenly have 20 people, ki kya chal raha hai and what's going on, and those kind of things. After the animals picked up, rescued, put in our ambulance, ever so often, I mean, it's almost all the time that they will come and ask, and they're like, oh, we didn't even know. And I mean, of course, Pune has changed a lot because we've been around for the last 13 years. So people know that there's an organization that rescues animals. But
mhm,
you will have that bhaji wala and that doodh wala who will next time probably pick up the phone and call you if he sees an animal. Otherwise, he would not have. Whereas the people who work with us are concerned, and people whose lives we touch, I feel like, of course, I mean, it's impossible, and it's not something that an organization does. It's what animals do to you. I mean, once an animal has touched your life, you're never the same again. So I think I see that a lot.
just
Yeah,
spreads. It spreads. The goodwill spreads. The good gesture spreads.
I think so. Yes.
So I have another question from the audience. Mira Tosar is asking, do you suggest the behavior assessment required training program before rehoming dogs typically cases from the abandonment?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, we run a rescue rehoming program, which take a lot of pride in saying that we run it very differently.
Mhm.
In fact, the rehoming center is run by our co-founder Tanya. She, in fact, is a behaviorist, and one of the things that she does very differently with the animals that come to us who are abandoned. I mean, abandonment is such a massive problem, and I mean, it's a very pet owner related problem. And sometimes breeders, but most often pet owners. So, the animals come to us, we don't know what background they have come from. So, for us, it animals bring joy to a family, and I mean, they're going to be a part of your life. So I feel like, as an organization that is rehoming an animal, we need to be very careful about what we are doing, because if we rehome a dog that is not behaviorally sound or has quirks, and something goes wrong, we may potentially scar a family or ruin things further for that dog. So when an animal comes to us, first and foremost, it is allowed to settle down into one of its units. In fact, we follow very different things, the way animals, abandoned pets, are handled in rescue, because where the place where the abandoned pets are kept. So they have their own kennel space, their beds, and all of those things. We never do the treatment over there, because in a home, you most like people are normally take the dogs to a vet. They don't get the treatment done at home. So anyway, that dog is emotionally scarred out of being abandoned. So that becomes his safe spot at rescue. It is behaviorally assessed. We have very objective assessment where it is checked for sociability. Does it have any quirks like food aggression, toy aggression? How's it doing around other dogs, other humans? Sometimes they like men, sometimes there are some gender preferences.
Mhm.
Animals come with all kinds of things. So all that is assessed. If there are fixable quirks like toy aggression, food aggression, Tanya and the team work on those things. And then when it comes to adoption, again, it's a process. So a person fills in a form. If he passes the form, I mean, people get very, very upset that sometimes we don't get back to them, but they have tick the right boxes, and we don't think they really fit for the dog. And for us, the dog not returning back to the kennel is really important. This whole concept of return to kennel rate, we ensure that we keep it really, really low because that's what's good for the animal. So, they pass a questionnaire. Then there is a telephonic interview. Then there is a meetup. Then you still cannot take the animal home, and then there's like a family interview, and then there's all of that, and then there's signing papers, and then there's socializing, and it's a process. I mean, people wait two years to adopt a child. So, while on one side we feel like, oh my God, they really need homes, we are being so pricey before giving them. It's not really pricey. It's the fact that this animal has already been abandoned, and it really shouldn't have to go through this again. So we are trying to be as sure as possible as we can.
Right. Do you do the same process for all animals? I mean, when I say all animals, cats and dogs, and probably a rabbit in case you'll have or whatever, or is it very specific for?
So it depends on the outcome, right? So, for example, when a street dog comes in, which has come in, I know there's a community caretaker and all of that, or I know that it's come from the road, it's an adult, he's going to go back there. In fact, I don't want to spoil him too much, because he has to go back on the streets. For example, if it's a kitten that's come in, I know we are going to push for its adoption. So we will start litter training it. If there are rabbits who have come who are scared and we know we're putting them up for adoption, we will start handling them more. So yes, I think we do that for all animals. I mean, we just speak about it. We speak about dogs more because they get abandoned in such large numbers.
Right. There's another question that I have, primarily not from the audience, but this is a question that has come up in my mind. How often do you encourage fostering, and do you have enough and more foster families in Pune who you all go back to again and again? People are willing to foster, and the question why I ask is, not many people, at least in India, of the India that I had known, were open to fostering about 5-7 years ago, and for me, living in Europe and life over here, fostering is something that most people prefer because that's easier to. So I'd really like you to talk about this and spread the message.
I'll tell you something. Because I have been to different parts of the world, and like you are in Germany right now, so you understand what fostering. I think fostering has a very different meaning in the rest of the world and a very different meaning in India. I don't think that we truly understand what fostering is.
But, I mean, that's where, and probably I have probably lost that. I mean, I live probably in that la la land. For me, is India is still as what I must have left it about 7 years ago or 5 years ago.
The thing is, of course, see, I just, there are amazing families here, people who are doing fostering. Right. But I feel like, how rest of the world a fostering program, it is an entire thing in itself, it's a commitment. It's you, in fact, it is not something that is done on a whim. There is a lot of planning involved in it. There is a lot of commitment in it. I have friends abroad who have done, who have fostered several animals from shelters, who are a part of giving them in and out. I feel that there are people who are fostering animals here, but it's still fairly unorganized. And, there are a lot of things that because I watch so many things happening around, I do feel a lot of things go wrong. So people confuse just sheltering an animal for a few days as fostering. So I think that I do have to say that RESQ does not have a fostering program at the moment. It is something that I really want to start, simply because we can't keep all the animals. In fact, many animals thrive better when they are fostered. But yes, they do. I mean, there is nothing that compares one-to-one attention.
So it can happen from anything between 6 months to 3 months to 1 year, and that's the commitment. And that's exactly where I wanted you to touch upon and understand: is fostering the same as the concept that the word fostering is understood by the Western world, or is it very different? Or is it a short term?
I think it's a very lost term in India. Also, it's also become a very big business from what I'm hearing very recently, because people charge a lot for fostering. I mean, fostering is supposed to be voluntary. Yes. Yeah. So like I said, fostering is a very lost term over here. Fosters are very, very rich people in India at the moment, from what I'm hearing. But it's everything is confused. Fostering, boarding, it's all. I've just been hearing a lot of stuff recently. But I do see what the rest of the world does with the fostering program, and it requires somebody to really put effort into it. I mean, I'm doing a lot of things. I can't have my head and hands everywhere, but someday, hopefully, to begin this, because I think animals thrive so well in fostering programs, and I mean, it's so critical. And I feel like it does not, that the kind of fostering program you are talking about does not exist. At least it doesn't exist in Pune.
Because fostering, in my view, or at least the worldview that we have, means that family acts as a bridge from the shelter to a home. You train the animal, make it thrive, and then hand it over. And that's where at times you have foster fails. So, and it's
So you know what? Sometimes a foster fail is okay. An acceptable foster fail once in a while is okay, that the foster itself adopted the animal.
yes.
But and that's fine to a great extent. But I just feel like that's not the concept of fostering in India. I think we have a long way to go when it comes to that. Somebody really needs to take it up.
Right. Do you have enough and more volunteers who come with you and shelter the animal? It could be a kitten in need, because I know that at the rescue center, when you have anything beyond 20 animals, giving that one-on-one attention becomes very difficult during a critical phase for an animal, big or small, when they are going through. It could be an accident, it could be any sort of, or probably when they're really tiny and they need.
So here's the thing, right? We before the lockdown, before COVID, we had a lot of volunteers who were coming in. Some would come in on weekends, some would come daily. Some have been coming daily for years. So yes, we have a lot of amazing volunteers. In fact, most of our team, even our core team, every single person began with volunteering. And then became a part of the organization. Of course, we have to limit the number of volunteers we have. You can't have too many people handling an animal. Also, it all depends. So with different species, we have different numbers of volunteers, that kind of thing. So for example, also we have a lot of animals that are very, very sick. We are more of a rescue center hospital versus a shelter. So the thing is, with a shelter environment, it's great because you just need the animals to be played with all the time, right? Like, or cared for or groomed and all of that. So we do have a whole load of sanctuary animals, especially some very special cases, large animals, things like that. But the majority of our organization is, is the hospital part. And when a dog is on drip 3 times a day and things like that, that is more for a experienced staff. And then also for us, because it's medical treatment, we have to have enough staff available, because tomorrow if a volunteer doesn't show up, the treatment cannot go for a toss. So yes, volunteers do get engaged in different kinds of work at rescue, but not all are engaged. I mean, they're definitely not engaged in the medical treatment, because we cannot rely on volunteers for that. But I mean, we've had some amazing volunteers, and we also have a lot of groups that come, from offices. And it's not like they come just one time, they come regularly. And it's really nice, they take up certain things at the center, and we know that they're going to come on the weekend and fix this. So yes, we greatly rely on them, and we've been really missing them through the lockdown. And I don't know what's going to happen, because, it's not like we can open up to visitors anytime soon.
So talk to me. Rescue riding through COVID. It's like probably last 3 months or 4 months must have been harrowing for you.
Oh yeah, it's been so ever since I think March 22nd, 23rd, when the curfew was announced, everything began then. As an organization that does emergency rescue, our sort of brains immediately moved into emergency and rescue mode. So, but considering the situation, we cut down our team from almost 45 people to just 15, 20 people. Anyone who was far away from the centers were asked to stay home. Anyone who lived at the center, we do have vets, we do have rehabilitators who live at the center, we have ground staff who lives at the center. Everyone at the center was working 7 days a week, 24/7, literally. A few of us who live very close to the center, were also working. So we cut down the team, took on, we did not stop one single day. So, I mean, honestly, everyone's been in lockdown at home. I mean, I keep joking that once the lockdown is over, I need to go on lockdown because I need a break. But we've been working every single day. We've had rescues. It's the kind of rescues changed a little bit when the lockdown happened. So there weren't that many road accidents and those kind of cases being reported because people were not out on the street reporting them.
Yeah, the
but
animals are living.
but yeah, people were reporting animals from home, so they had noticed people who had left their animals at home. Suddenly they started noticing which neighbor is treating a pet badly or has abandoned him and disappeared somewhere. Or we also I mean it's the summers also, people started noticing a lot of birds outside their windows or the ones which were in distress, so those kind of calls went up. It was the summer, so we had dogs, cats, cows falling in wells and getting stuck on trees and all sorts of those kind of things. So it's not like the number of cases went down at all. In fact,
It's just
uh,
changed. It just changed its
it
color.
changed a little bit. It just changed a little bit, and honestly, it was very hard for the team because we were only operating one ambulance, and literally there was just two or three of us who was going out to do rescues, and just together as a unit. It was really hard trying to be everywhere. We would be exhausted every single day. So it was quite crazy. I mean, it's gotten better now because some of the team is back after this relaxation. So it's a lot better now, but those first 2 months were absolutely crazy.
So I have some questions from the audience. I'll just read out. This is from Meera Tosar again. Working in the animal field itself emotionally draining when it comes to rescue. How do you manage the mental health care for yourself as well as the team? Do you suggest to consider mental health care for the animal volunteers?
Well, yes, Meera, compassion fatigue is a very real thing. I always say this, you have to be very passionate if you are doing this work, but you have to be very practical if you want to continue doing this work. So, most of our team members, barring this lockdown, is forced to take a day off, whether you want it or not. I know there are several of them who would just be very happy to work 7 days a week, but they are first forced to take a day off. Number one, I'm talking about our own team in itself. Also, for example, there are decisions, hard decisions that need to be taken. Sometimes euthanasia, those kind of things. They're never a one-person job. We have a committee of people who goes through, even we make a discussion out of one single animal. So the burden is never borne by one person, in that sense. It's a veterinarian, non-veterinarian, different perspective views and all. So there is like a voting that happens, and without that, a difficult call is not made. Sometimes it's not even about euthanasia. Sometimes it's one of those bad days where you've just seen a lot of death, and yes, it shakes a lot of people up. But and each person has their own sort of coping mechanism. I guess I cope differently. Death never stops affecting you. You just learn to cope with it better. Also, I keep telling everybody to just focus on the good stuff, on the recoveries, on the more on the positive things, and that's what keeps them going. So yeah, and I generally think that we also have sort of associated with us is a person who is a psychologist, and our team is open to go and talk to him whenever they want. They have been introduced to him. So whenever anyone's feeling anything, I mean, it could not necessarily mean animal related, but everybody has an open option. I mean, that's his voluntary service to us, that if anybody needs to talk, anyone wants to do that, they are open to go and talk to him. So yes, I think it's a real issue. And whereas I am concerned, I mean, I have been doing this for more than 13 years, and I feel like I take sort of a little time out every day to relax by myself and go over what I did. But yes, mental health care is very, very important in this field. I have seen people completely lose it, and because I see it, recognize it, I keep trying to keep a watch out for it, that it does not happen to anybody around me or in my team.
The
Working.
emotional drain out that happens, and especially
Yes.
that death and broken legs and the dogs being returned or cows being eaten plastic. I mean, it can be a little harrowing, and I think it's an important topic to touch upon and discussed openly.
Yes,
There's
yes.
another question from uh, Angi Rajesh Shah. He says, "What do you think for animals used for vaccination? Being an animal love, it's hard. What we do about it?" I think
What
it.
did it, oh, for, are you, is he talking about COVID?
I don't
The,
know. Like, he's asking about animals used for vaccination. Could be animals used in the labs for testing. Is my assumption. If we can discuss a little on that. If that's not the thing, then probably the person will write back. But
uh,
in my view, probably it'll be simple, more on the lines of no animal should be used in testing. It's as simple as that, but I could like to hear your views as well.
so the thing is that, I mean, animal testing for the use of cosmetics and all of those things have already been banned in our country, and I think it's amazing because I really don't see why animals should be used for testing.
Yes,
Um,
the question was animals used in the lab.
Yes, and secondly, when it comes to animals being used for testing in the pharmaceutical industry, which is actually still permitted in our country, see, it is very tightly regulated by a monitoring body called the CPCSA. Okay, so I mean, the greater good is about, for humans is put into the picture, and that's why a certain amount of animals are used. If you are talking about the COVID vaccine right now, I mean, this is something that I would like to tell everybody if they're listening, because right now it is very much in the news that the Maharashtra Forest Department has, given permission for 30 monkeys to be tested on for by NIV in Pune. What I would like to say about this is that everyone's only reading the news that the forest department has given permission. What I mean, from my understanding of this, is that it's that CPCSA permissions still need to come through, and it is for the COVID vaccine. And I do not have any views on whether it should be done or should not be done or anything like that, because I just know that a vaccine really should be found fast, because if it is not, then I feel like thousands and thousands, forget 30, there'll be thousands and thousands of animals being tested on by all sorts of things. So at this point in time, I just feel like I don't care, just find a vaccine quickly, because it will just go into different stages of testing. Principally, I don't agree with it. A lot of research has also shown that animal testing is not, I mean, there is no correlation with humans
Obviously,
to a great extent, but it's just the way things are done,
and
unfortunately.
probably vaccines could be out, could not be out. It's just such a topic that can become so controversial, so it's best not touched upon because different countries have different
Yeah,
laws.
it has different laws and different policies, but
So
all I can say is that it is regulated by the CPCSA, so which has a fair amount of animal people on it as well. So let's just hope that it's looked into carefully.
I I mean, I'd like to jump onto another topic which is very, very close to my heart, which is how do you educate local local police, the security in buildings, people who come to volunteer about animal laws, what is right, what is not right, because once people are educated, I think life of any animal rescue or the goodwill that you would want to garner and push across to people in every society as at large will be easier.
I
And
don't. Okay, sorry. So are you talking about animal laws specifically? You think everybody should know animal laws?
it's more about, let's say, when do you put a dog on leash, when do you muzzle a dog, how do you keep a dog, and people will have a lot of goodwill saying that I'm keeping my animal in the balcony, so it's going to be looking down and looking at the world go by when I go to work. Vis-a-vis, it's cruel to keep an animal in the balcony when it's sunny. Bring the animal inside. All those education as in people.
So I feel what you're talking about is responsible pet ownership.
Yeah.
Okay, to a great extent.
Hmm.
I feel like I don't see what we have in terms of laws in our country is the PCA, and that does not define these kind of things.
All
Okay.
right.
It does not define you cannot keep your dog in the balcony for so many hours, and this is considered cruelty. right? But the thing is, the concept of responsible pet ownership, a simple thing like when you go down, I mean, my dog is amazing off the leash, but I know that other people are scared, and I can't do that in a building where, for example, 30 other people live, right?
Hmm.
Or so for example, I find it extremely irresponsible when people who have unneutered animals walk their dogs off the leash, because they are contributing to a problem. If there is a and people say, oh no, I was watching my dog, it sometimes it doesn't take very long. So
Hmm.
small things like that. Or people who leave their dogs in cars for hours and hours, I mean, they think it's okay, and it's not okay. There are dogs that die of heat exhaustion, you know. Or people
How do you
who
educate people around those lines? As in, do you?
I think it's more counseling than law that has to be thrown. Very
Hmm.
honestly, I think that count like a very. In fact, I think a lot of us get into this major preach mode, and that's not a good thing, because the minute you do that, the
Hmm.
person goes on defense. So I feel like a lot of people who, especially like people who are working with animals, we need to approach things differently. So if somebody, for example, had put their dog in a balcony for very many hours, I would not go and tell the pet owner that, what you're doing is against the law and I can slap a cruelty case on you. What
Hmm.
I will probably go and do is I will tell him, I will invent a story about how this one dog died because of heat exhaustion in the balcony. Oh, and somebody did a case on him. Maybe you don't want that happening to you.
Hmm.
Maybe you should take it in. Maybe it's not, also, like, heat, your breed of dog, maybe heat exhaust. So I feel like that should be the first approach. Then if the person doesn't listen completely, is completely defiant, those kind of things, I think that, we need to approach things very differently for in interest of the animal. Not, we are not being nice to the human necessarily. Sometimes they just do it out of ignorance. Sometimes they just don't know better. But if you go lashing out to a person, he will go on a defense and saying, I will do what I want. So I feel like you need to approach these things very differently. You need to learn to talk to people better in interest of the animal. It doesn't matter beyond the point what the law is. At that moment, that animal's interest is more important.
Right. There's a question from Samarlal saying that what is the minimum vaccine required for street dogs, and is it needed lifelong?
See, it's I honestly I would not like to answer this one, because it's a question that a veterinarian should answer. It's very dependent. Where you're sending me this message from. I don't know, so I don't think I'll answer this one. I'd leave this one for a vet. But yes, rabies is very, very important. That is mandatory in our country. That is the only one thing that I want to say. Nothing else, but at least give a rabies vaccine.
Yeah. There's another person called Piyush Pandey who's asking, I have 4 lap dogs. How to resolve tick problems?
Again, this is a veterinarian's question, but something that's working brilliantly for my dogs has been this thing called Bravecto. It seems to be working really well, and nothing's happened to my dogs. So there are pros and cons, and people have all sorts of things to say, but this has been working for my
I
dogs, and that's
suggest
all I
that
can say.
when people take their dogs for a good tick bath and then go to the vet and then get a solution. What works?
Yeah, this advice is best taken from your vet, because there are certain dogs that are not okay with certain tick and flea medication as well. There are certain breeds that are allergic to it. So please ask your vet.
I mean, I have been asking my caretakers to give my pets back home in India neem bath, and that works perfect. I'm going to boil the neem, rub it on their body, give neem sticks to chew upon, and I try to avoid the medical thing because most of my dogs have been rescued from really, really horrible conditions and
Okay.
have medical problems. But horses for horses, like I keep saying, so best something ask to your vet because they will look at the body weight, the health of the dog, kidney values, etc. And then
I
you
would also like to say this, that this is exactly what shouldn't happen. The vet should be asked the vet's question. The dog behaviorist should be asked the behaviorist question.
yeah.
And a person who's an animal rescuer like me, or a person who's the founder of an organization, ask me those questions.
Okay.
We need to start asking people the right questions.
The most critical part for an animal rescue organization is funding, Neha. How do you manage that big chunk? Because when you want to deliver quality and save lives, you do require the financial support. How do you garner that? And especially through this COVID phase where you know that people are now trying to
Yes.
pinch pennies in all areas.
Yeah. So, whereas funding for rescue is concerned, it has changed over the years. What I would like to say is, okay, so as an organization, we receive zero government funding.
Oh,
Uh, we are entirely dependent on the goodwill of donors. And I would like to say that 95% of our donors are people who have watched us work over the years. So I think consistently doing good work and continuing to do work is something that has that wins you the goodwill and support of people. Whereas donations are concerned, we do get, I mean, it is always a struggle, and with changing times, it's a struggle. The economic climate has changed now. Again, it's going to be a challenge. In fact, we cut back on certain activities, because in order to be prudent for the next 1 or 2 years to come.
hmm.
So one has to keep evolving according to that. But when it comes to funding, there is an X amount that that comes through corporate donors. There is a certain amount that comes when people sponsor animals. So we have a place on our website where you can sponsor an animal that's with us. So people do that at times,
Yeah.
or send in funds for their care. There is people. I think also I think putting out your need in a good way is something that learned over the years. When I say, so for example, if you need something, put it out there, tell people what you're going to use it for, share stories with them about what you've used it for. I think over the years, I guess, it's just that. So but yeah, going ahead, very uncertain times. We have cut down our team. We have changed the scale of our operations. We used to run three small ambulances. Now we are only running one. We run one small ambulance, we run one large ambulance, and we run one wildlife unit. So from six, we've had to go to three. These are changes we've had to make so that we can continue doing the work we do. So even though we may rescue lesser animals, we will still give them 100%.
Neha, now I'm going to just do a little bit of a different thing. I'm just going to do rapid fire. You need to give
Okay.
one word, one sentence, or 1 minute. We stick to that number one. Your favorite rescue story.
Leopard fallen in the well, getting the
Alive?
leopard out.
Did it come out alive? Did it really bucket?
Sorry?
Did you all rescue it and it was alive, or did it really unfortunately?
No, no, it was alive. We rescued it and it was released successfully. That's why it is one of my favorite rescues in the recent times.
And your favorite adoption? The very,
Oh,
oh,
oh, there are too many. I cannot pick one. This is a wrong.
okay. The first one. Your
The
first.
first. Oh my God! Oh, there's this dog called Felix that we had rescued from a canal many years back, and he was adopted, and it's been almost 12 years. And the pet owner, in fact, recently shared his pictures, and that was really heartwarming. I think that
Oh,
one.
beautiful. Um, the moment in your life when you said, I have done this rescue, but I cannot give it up for adoption. Did it ever happen to you or your
No,
co-founder? No.
no.
Okay. When you have an interspecies that's living under the same sky, same roof, have you seen interspecies becoming best friends in your farm? It could be a
Oh
cat,
yeah.
a dog, and a donkey, something of that sort.
The boss of the large animal unit is the chicken. Her name is Susie.
Are you kidding me?
Everybody is scared of her. The horses, the donkeys, the pigs, the buffaloes, cows. Hell, the camel is also scared of the chicken. Everybody is scared of the
Sorry
chicken.
about how did she become the boss?
I don't know. I think it's just her innate personality. She's a big fat chicken. She's like 6 or 7 kilos. Her name is Susie. She was rescued by Tuhin. And she is literally the boss. of the whole place. So, and I mean, watching them, you have a horse, and suppose the horse is eating the food, and she goes there, the other animal will step back. It's so funny to see these things. Or the goats, and I mean, we have an emu now, so it's really funny. The emu gets along with the horses, and she's scared of the goats. We see, everybody lives together over there: dog, cat, chicken, duck, camel, emu. Just name the domestic species and it's there. So yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we see it all the
Mm,
time.
if your animals could speak, what would be that one message that animals would give out to humans?
You don't have to like us, but you don't have to be cruel.
It's a profound last message, Neha. And I think with that, we don't have any questions to answer from the audience. We've taken most of them. So
Mhm.
thank you so much, Neha. It was a wonderful session with you. And in case you get any people putting in comments, we'll redirect them to your website, or if people
Great.
wish to donate, they can donate. Is popping up, which is rescuect.org/donate. And Neha, thumbs up to you and your team for the work that you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It was a good chat.
Bye then. Bye.
Bye.